Hello everyone, we are from Group 6. We represent motive and personality. I am Zulfa. We represent basic concepts. Let us begin. First, we must know the definition of motive. Motive are internal states that arouse and direct behavior towards specific objects and goals. Move on to the next slide. Motive often caused by deficit, a lack of something. For example, if a person has not eaten for many hours, she or he is motivated by hunger. Motive differ in intensity depending on the person and his or her circumstances. For example, if a person is not eaten for several days, he must be more desperately looking for food than a person who has not eaten after a few hours. It is also based on need, states of tension within a person. As a need is satisfied, the state of tension is reduced. The motive of hunger, in turn, causes the person to seek out of food, to think of food constantly, and perhaps even to see food in objects not normally thought as food. For example, as we hungry, we may think that rock as a prey. Motive propel people to perceive, think, and act in specific way that satisfy the need. Deficit lead to a need, which lead to a motive to satisfy that need. Idea in reality by fostering specific actions, or in fantasy by creating thoughts and that satisfying. Deficit has not eaten today, lead to need, wish for food, which lead to motive, hunger, to satisfy that need for food. Either in reality, behavior intended to satisfy the need, go to store, buy food, bring it home and cook it, or fantasy, thought and fantasy, thinking about food, fantasizing about a big meal, perceiving that a rock looks like a loaf of bread, and many more. Like dispositional psychologists, motive psychologists stress that people differ from one another in the type and strength of their motive. These differences are measurable. These differences cause or associated with important life outcomes. Differences among people in the relative amount of various motives are stable over time. Motive may provide one answer to the question, why do people do what they do? Move on to the next slide. We need to know about need. Need is a potentially or readiness to respond in a certain way under certain given circumstances. It is noun which stands for the fact that a trend is apt to recur. Needs organize perception, guiding us to see what we want to see. For example, someone who has more power, a need to influence others, may see even everyday social situation opportunities to boss others around. Needs also organize action by compelling a person to do what is necessary to fulfill the need. A person who has a need to achieve always makes sacrifices in order to excel in tasks. Murray also proposed a list of fundamental human needs. There are 4 fundamental human needs. First one is ambition needs. Second, needs to defend status. Third, needs related to social power. Fourth, social affection needs. First, I will explain about ambition needs. I have easy way to remember. AEO. A for achievement, E for exhibition, O for order. First one, achievement. To master, manipulate or organize others, objects, or ideas to accomplish difficult tasks and do this rapidly and independently as possible, to overcome obstacles and excel, to surpass rivals by exercising talent. Next, exhibition, to be seen and heard, to be the center of attention, to make an impression on others, to excite, fascinate, entertain, intrigue, amuse, and tease or amaze others. Last, order, to put things in orderly arrangement, to desire cleanliness, organization, balance, neatness, and precision. Next is need to defend status, dominance, to seek influence or direct behavior of others by persuasion, command, suggestion, or seduction. To control one's environment, particularly the social environment, to restrain or prohibit others. They want power, want people to hear them. Third, needs related to social power. There are four: abasement, aggression, autonomy, blame avoidance. First one, abasement, to accept injury, criticism, and blame, to admit the mistakes and ask forgiveness to others. Aggression, to overcome opposition forcefully, to avenge an injury, to attack, injure, or kill another, to forcefully punish or oppose another. It is opposite to abasement. Autonomy, to shake off restraint, break out of confines, to get free, to resist coercion and restriction, to avoid being dominant, to be free to act according one's wish and remain unattached. Lastly is blame avoidance, to avoid humiliation at all costs, to avoid situations that may lead embarrassment or belittlement. They are very be careful in their action. Last, social affection needs. SAN, success, affiliation, nurturance. First one, success, to receive aid from others, to have one's need gratified by another, to be nursed, supported, protected, advised, indulged, loved, and consoled. Next is affiliation, to enjoy cooperation and reciprocal interaction with similar others, to draw near to others, to please and win affection of those you like, to remain loyal to friends. Last, nurturance, to take care of others in need, to give sympathy and gratify the needs of helpless others, to assist person in danger. Okay, success is the one who they get love, support, advice. Nurturance is the person who give. They give sympathy, help others, assist person in danger. And affiliation is like to communicate, always shown in friendship. Okay, next slide. Every person has unique hierarchy of need. Each needs interact with various other needs within each person. This interaction is what makes the concept of motive dynamic. Okay. Dynamic refers to mutual influence of forces within a person. For example, Psychological, we need sleep, eat, and intimacy. For safety, we need a safe house and neighborhood. Love and belonging, we has happy family, uh, has a pet or spouses. Okay, esteem, award or being praised by your loved one. Lastly, self-actualization, the one that we want the most, being such as being the boss at the company. It depends on every person. As I said before, each person has unique hierarchy of needs. Okay, next we're gonna continue with press. According to Murray, elements in environment affected a person's need. For example, a person with a high need for affiliation might be sensitive to the social aspect of his or her environment, such as how many people are present, whether they are interesting, and whether they look approachable. So, press refer to need-relevant aspect of the environment. For example, a person's need for affiliation won't affect that person's behavior without an appropriate environmental press, such as the presence of friendly people. Morel introduced alpha press, so-called environment or objective reality, beta press, a perceived environment or reality as it perceived. For example, Ani and Chacha are walking down the street and Sarah approaches and smiles to them. Ani, who has high on need for affiliation, might see the smile as sign of friendliness. Chacha, who has low on need for affiliation, might see the same smile as smirk and being suspicious if they are bad-mouthing her. Objectively, alpha press, it was the same smile. Subjectively, beta press, it was very different event for those two persons due to their differences in their need for affiliation. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Audrey. So I will be presenting a perception and TAT, or known as thematic apperception test. Okay, so what is a perception? What do you think it is? Okay, so a perception is the act of interpreting the environment and perceiving the meaning of what is going on in a situation. So Murray held that a person's needs influence how he or she perceives the environment, especially when the environment is ambiguous. As for an example, when a stranger smiles at you, okay, then you might start to wonder why that stranger smiled at you. Maybe could there be something funny on your face, or maybe just an act of kindness. Okay. So our needs and motives influence our perceptions. If we want to know about a person's primary motives, we might ask that individual to interpret what is going on in a variety of situations, especially ambiguous situations. So ambiguous means it's open to more than one interpretations. It does not have one obvious meaning. You will understand more about the perceptions after this slide. Okay, so the simple insight that needs and motives influence how we perceive the world led Murray and Christiana Morgan to develop a formal technique for assessing these two constructs. They call it the thematic apperception test, or TAT for short. Okay, so TAT consists of a set of black and white images that are ambiguous. The person is then asked to make up a story about what is happening in the picture. So the more ambiguous the picture is, the easier to make up a story. So it's like a test of imaginations, one form of intelligence, where it let your imaginations have its way as in a fair story and tell what the people in the pictures are doing. For example, okay, so this is a picture of a woman standing next to an open door with one hand grabbing the side of the door and the other holding her downcast face. So the girl in the drawing may be going in or going out. And we take a look by the way the girl holds on her head. You might wonder what the girl have in her mind or what kind of emotions she might have. Is she crying, feeling despair, or is she dizzy? Does she need to get some air, like that? So you could have a lot of perceptions. Okay, this will be the example of CAT with people in it. Next one is an example of TAT without people in it. So such picture is perhaps the most ambiguous. Maybe you will thought of who put the robot there? Are they coming or going? Did someone stole it and leave it there? Like that. Okay. In administering the TAT, a person is shown each picture and then told to be creative and make up a short story describing what is happening in each picture. Then he or she is encouraged to tell a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The psychologist then codes the stories for the presence of various types of imagery associated with particular motifs. Okay, let's take the example for the robot image. Okay, this is the answer given by a person when he or she described on the picture. So let's take a look at the answer. The boat in the picture is being used by a young boy to take produce to market. So that will be the beginning. The boy has stopped to gather some wild berries to take to the market to sell along with his farm produce. So that will be the middle. And this boy works very hard and eventually grows up, puts himself through college, and becomes a famous scientist, specializing in the study of plants, primarily agricultural crops. That will be the end. So when you look at this story, it has a lot of achievement and imagery, like the boy works very hard and grows up and put himself through college and then becomes a famous scientist, like that. So the subject who wrote it will be seen to have a high need for achievement. Okay, TAT was developed in 1935 by Murray and Morgan. So since then, many researchers have modified its administrations by using fewer cards, selecting other drawings, use a data projector or computers to display the images to many people at once. However, the pictures in the original TAT are dated because of the hair and style from 1930s. So a newer version of TAT is developed and found to function similarly to the original set in terms of soliciting need relevant things. So the essential features of TAT are: first, subject is given an ambiguous stimulus, which is a picture. And then the second one is he or she is asked to describe and interpret what is going on. Okay, so what is obtained through TAT? The purpose of the test is to learn more about the respondents' thoughts, concerns, and motives based on the stories they create to explain the vague and often provocative scenes depicted in the picture. So let's take the need for achievement motive, which can be scored by counting up the number of references in the person's story to wanting to do better, anticipating success, feeling positive about succeeding, and overcoming obstacles. The study of theory suggests that people do respond differently to the themes of the pictures. For example, like high need for achievement people respond to the achievement pictures differently than a low need achievement people. For example, like for a high need achievement people, they mostly will say, like before this, grow up and then have a job become a scientist like that. For low need achievement people, maybe they just say what they see in the picture. They are grass, they are a robot like that. Okay. TAT continues to be used particularly to assess psychoanalytic constructs such as defense mechanisms, attachment styles, and psychosexual stages, as well as needs and motives. So research showed that as measures of individual differences in motivations, the TAT and other picture story completion exercises can be both reliable and valid when scored using specific criteria to identify themes of achievement, power, and intimacy. So let's take a look at down here. We could differentiate between using the TAT to determine state level needs and trait level needs. Okay, state levels of need. Okay, state levels of need refers to a person's momentary amount of a specific need, which can fluctuate with specific circumstance. In short, the specific needs of a person is only momentary for specific situations. It's like a person who is failing at a task might experience a sharp increase in a state of achievement motivations. For example, a student who gets 99% instead of 100% in a quiz might experience a sharp increase in the state of achievement motivations. Next is trait levels of needs. So it refers to measuring a person's average tendency or their set point on the specific trait. The idea is that people differ from each other in their typical or average amount of specific needs. The TAT and other such instruments have multiple pictures or items, and the amount of imagery related to a particular need is then averaged across the picture to get at their trait level. So the assessment of trait levels is most useful in determining differences between individuals in their average tendency towards particular needs. Assessing trait levels of needs is the most frequent goal of personality psychologists who use such measures. Okay, a newer form of assessing motives is the multi-motive grids, which combines features of TAT with features of self-report questionnaires. So in this test, 14 pictures are selected to arouse one of the big three motives, which are achievement, power, and intimacy. The pictures are presented with questions about important motivational stats, and the person then answers those questions. The idea is that the photo arouses the motive, which then will influence how the person will answer the questions. So while this technique is relatively new, initial results show promising levels of reliability. Initial validity data are also promising, for example, showing that motive grid assessment of need for achievement predicted persistence and performance in laboratory tasks. The TAT remains the popular personality assessment technique today, even though some researchers argue that it has low test-retest reliability. In addition, several researchers have reported extremely low correlations between TAT measures of certain needs and questionnaire measures of the same needs, leading them to a question whether the TAT is a valid measure. Okay, so this is where it leads. That TAT and questionnaire measures of motives, do they measure different aspects of motives? Okay. So psychologist David McClelland argues that responses to TAT and questionnaires measures are not correlated because they measure two different types of motivations. The two types of motivations are implicit motivations and explicit motivations. Okay. One type of motive is called implicit motivations. So these motives are based on needs such as the need for achievement, need for power, and the need for intimacy. So when TAT is used to measure these motives, they are called implicit, because the persons writing the stories are not explicitly telling the psychologists about themselves. Instead, they are telling stories about other people. The stories are thought to reflect the implied motives of persons writing the stories, which is their unconscious desires, aspirations, and unspoken needs and desires. So in short, what people write in response to the theater pictures is presumed to reflect their real, although unconscious motivations. The other type of motivations is called explicit motivations, which McClelland argued reflects a person's self-awareness of his or her own conscious motives. So these explicit motivations reflect a person's conscious awareness about what is important to them. Okay. McClelland argued that implicit and explicit motives represent fundamentally different aspects of motivations and that they should predict different life outcomes. The research literature supports a distinction between implicit and explicit motivations. They sorted the studies, those that look at short-term responses to specific tasks such as grades in college courses, performance in laboratory achievement tasks, and those that look at long-term achievement such as like lifetime income, job level attained. So from here, it was found that TET-based measure was a better predictor of long-term outcome than questionnaire measures, whereas questionnaire was a better predictor of short-term responses. Okay, so as for conclusion, both the TET and questionnaires measures may play important roles in helping psychologists understand the short and long-term effects of motives. That's all for me. Thank you.
My name is Preshinedra, and for the next presentation, I'll be presenting about the three big motives. What is motives? Unlike traits, motives are understood to be related to goal seeking. They represent the class or theme of one's goal. McClelland have postulated three distinct motives, which is the need for achievement, NACH, the need for power, NPOW, and the need for intimacy, NINT. The need for achievement, NACH, is defined as the desire to do better, to be successful, and to feel competent. The need for achievement will energize people in a certain achievement-related situation. For an example, in academic achievement, people that had high NACH obtain satisfaction from completing tasks or even from anticipation of accomplishing tasks, and they also cherish the process of being engaged in challenging activity. High NACH people prefer moderate level of challenge. It means they are not attracted to a task that is almost impossible to accomplish, high level, or a task that are too easy. A task that is too hard is not challenging for them because it will easily provide a chance to do better if everyone else do poorly. Meanwhile, for tasks that are too easy, they tend to do poorly if everyone else do better. High NACH people are also motivated to do better than others. Theoretically, high NACH people are expected to prefer a moderately challenging task. There are a few studies conducted to prove this statement. For an example, in this slide, I have prepared two studies that prove high NACH people prefer a moderately challenging task. Studies 1, conducted to examine children's level of challenge preference in a ring toss game. The picture below in this slide shows a children ring toss game. If you don't know what is children ring toss game, in these studies, children are being observed as they throw the rings to any of the sticks that they prefer. The result of these studies is that children with high NACH prefer a moderate level of challenge. They toss the ring to the middle stick, which illustrates moderate level, instead of tossing the rings to the closest sticks that illustrate easy level, or to the sticks that are farther from them, which is the almost impossible to accomplish level. Meanwhile, for the children with low NACH, they toss the ring to the closest sticks or the sticks that are farther from them. Studies too was conducted outside of laboratory among young adults. Young adults high in NSCH has been found to choose college major that are of intermediate level of difficulty and pursue career that are of moderate difficulty. Here are a few examples of research findings related to achievement motives. TAT and other measures are used to measure the strength of achievement motives in this research. There are so many research on achievement motivation, and here are three examples of the research. The first one is the research in the relationship between NSCH and entrepreneurial activities shows that starting and managing small business offer a high degree of satisfaction to a person with high NSCH. Studies in several countries showed that men with high NSCH are more attracted to business occupation than men with low NSCH, and this research is by McClellan in 1965. The second one is a study of farmers show those with high NSCH are more likely to adopt innovative farming practices and to show improved rates of production over time, and this research is by Singh in 1978. And the last one is students with high NSCH appear to be more intense in their pursuit of having good grades. They are more likely to investigate course requirements before enrolling in a class, speak with a professor prior to exam, and contact the professor about the exam after it is given to obtain feedback about their performance. And this research is by Idris in 1967. Men and women high in NSCH are mostly similar in their preference for moderate challenge, personal responsibilities for their outcome, and tasks with feedback. The major differences between men and women occurs in two areas, which are the life outcome predicted by NSCH and childhood experiences. In the table below, it shows the differences between men and women in the life outcome predicted by NSCH. For men, they focus primarily on the achievement in business, while for women, it depends whether the woman value having a family or value having both family and work goals. For the women who value family, NSCH are seen in the woman's investment in activities related to dating and courtship. For an example, they care more about their appearances and talk more about their relationship or their partner to their friends, while for women who value family and work goals more, NSCH is related more to achieving better grades, completing college, marrying, and starting a family later than other women. The next one in the next table, it shows the differences between men and women in terms of NSCH in childhood experiences. For men, high NSCH are related to parental supports and care. Men who grew up in a happy family environment and have loving, caring, and supportive parents are more likely to have a high NSCH, while for women, having a high NSCH are related more with a stressful or difficult early family life. According to research by Kagan and Moss in 1962, it shows that the mother of a high NSCH girl were found to be critical, aggressive, and competitive towards them, and they were also less nurturing and affectionate to the daughter. There is an interesting finding concerning the level of NSCH in children who come from families in which the parents have divorced or separated. Women whose parents have divorced have higher NSCH compared to those whose parents are still together. It is the opposite for boys, where those whose parents have divorced tend to have low NSCH. Other than that, living with single mother will provide achieving role model for young girls, whereas for boys it may demonstrate that men are unnecessary for family life. Here are a few ways of how to raise children with high NSEH. The first one is to set tough but realistic goals. It means that the parents should expect a better outcome from their children by considering their abilities, otherwise the children may give up. The next is to applaud successes and celebrate accomplishment. This is considered a motivational rewards for the children and energize them to achieve more positive and frequent success. Other than that, parents should also acknowledge and not dwell with failure. They should stress to their children that failures are part of learning to become more better so that the children will not give up easily. Next, avoid instilling a fear of failure. Instead, emphasize the motive to succeed. Lastly is to stress effort over ability. Instead of saying, you can do this because you are a genius to the children, parents should be saying, you can do this because you try. The developmental theory of achievement motivation was proposed by psychologist Carol Dweck in 2002, and it emphasizes the belief that people develop their abilities and competencies. Briefly, the theories hold that abilities are not fixed, but they are malleable and can be developed through effort. This theory is having an impact on school and other educational settings as potentials and ability will develop through effort.
Hello everyone, my name is Aishah and I'm going to be the next presenter. But before I proceed with my presentation, just want to alarm you guys that the closed caption might slightly incorrect. So please do turn on the audio and stay focused. Okay, let's get started. Another motive of interest to psychologists is based on the need for power. Need for power also can be described as the desire to have an impact on others. Need for power, commonly defined as a readiness or preference for having an impact on other people. People with high on need for power have a need to impress, influence, or control other people and tend to be recognized by others for their power-oriented action. They want others to react to them either with admiration, praise, or even a fear. High need for power individual will be faster at recognizing facial expression of emotion in others. This is because they really want to know what people think about them. Based on few research findings, there are individual differences regarding the need for power. People with high need for power tend to obtain prestige possession, such as sport cars, credit cards, and even a nameplate for a dormitory door. It appears that an individual high in need for power is interested in control. They control the situation and even people. However, men who have high in need for power tend to abuse their spouses more than men with low need for power. Also, a person with a high need for power prefer to befriend
with people who are not well known or popular. This is because people who do not pose a threat to the person, prestige, or status. Next is the sex differences in the need for power. There are no research regarding the power motive has found sex differences in average level on need for power. However, the largest consistent sex differences is that high need for power men tend to have wide variety of impulsive and aggressive behavior. Most of the people who have high need for power, usually dissatisfying dating relationship, have argument with others, do higher chance in divorce, they tend to exploit sexually of women, and more frequent sex partner, sex at an early age, and tend to have alcohol abuse. Regarding the profligate impulsive, where the profligate impulsive mean that such as drinking behavior, aggression behavior, and also sexual exploitation are less likely to occur if an individual has had responsibility training, such as they're taking care of their younger siblings, or maybe they're having one's own children to learn to manage and to behave in a better way. When we talk about health status and the need for power, we can see that people with high need for power easily to have conflict and frustration. McClellan also named it as a power stress, where people with high need for power can be less efficient, frequent illness such as flu, colds, and they also tend to have lower level of immune antibody, linked with high blood pressure and high chances to have a muscle tension. And when we talk about war and peace and power, David Winter said that the need for power might influence the presence of power images. Example that Winter found that wars were started when power imagery in the parliamentary speeches was high. Even increases in power images accelerate the military action. Next, let's move on to need for intimacy. The last of the big three motifs is based on the desire for warm and fulfilling relationship with others. Needs for intimacy can be defined as recurrent preference or readiness for warm, close, and communicative interaction with others. By using TAT in order to measure the strength of intimacy motive and to determine what the difference between people with need for intimacy and people with low need for intimacy. Based on the research finding, studies have been found that people with high needs for intimacy tend to spend more time thinking about relationship, have more pleasant emotion when they are around with other people, smile, laugh, and make more eye contact. They tend to start up conversation more frequently, and most of the time, the conversation can be meaningful conversation. They tend to write more letters and listen to their friends. When we talk about sex differences in need for intimacy, there are no sex differences as need intimacy associate with certain benefit and positive life outcome. However, there are consistent sex difference in need for intimacy. As we can see, women with high need intimacy link with happiness and satisfaction with life. However, men with high need of intimacy kindly related to strain in life. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Siti Binti Shah. So today I will present about Maslow's contribution to psychology. Before that, let me explain the meaning of humanistic psychology. The humanistic psychology focuses on the potential of people to become all that they can be. Next is characteristics of the humanistic tradition. The first characteristic is an emphasis on conscious awareness of needs, choice, and personal responsibility. It means that the person makes the choices and takes responsibility for their choices, whether the choice is right or wrong. Their life depends on what choices that they will choose. Some people will make the drastic efforts to take responsibility for their life after realize that they are not satisfied with their choice. The second characteristic is an emphasis on the human need for growth and the realization of one's full potential. The meaning of the human potential here is a concept of the self-actualization motive. According to Abraham Maslow, self-actualization is a process of becoming more and more what one idiosyncratically is to become everything that one is capable of becoming. The last characteristic is humanistic tradition views much of motivation as being based in a need to grow, to become who one is meant to be. This makes the humanistic tradition differ from other traditions that view motivation as coming from a specific deficit or lack. In humanistic tradition, the motive to self-actualize is a growth-based motive, a motive to develop and to become more and more what one is destined to become. Any discussion of the motive to self-actualize has to begin with Maslow's contribution that been considered as the father of the humanist movement in psychology. Maslow disagreed with behaviorists that believed people's behaviors were purely determined by rewards and punishments. He also didn't like psychoanalysis views that said the people were slaves to their urges. So Maslow developed humanistic psychology with the belief that there had to be more to humans than simply rewards, punishments, and subconscious urges, which focuses on the potential of people to become all that they can be. Maslow's first and famous contribution to psychology is hierarchy of needs, which he believed that needs were hierarchically organized. Some needs take priority over other needs. On the bottom of the hierarchy are the needs that must be fulfilled first, and as we move up the hierarchy, the needs become less and less about survival and more about becoming the best you possible, or in other words, self-actualization. So let's take a look more deeper. At the bottom of the hierarchy are the physiological needs. These include the basic needs that human needs for the survival of their body. For example, like food, clothing, air, shelter, and the homeostatic process such as excretion. Maslow believed physiological needs to be the most essential of our needs. For example, like when you're hungry, you cannot focus on anything else besides food. The next level are the safety needs. These have to do with shelter and security, such as having a place to live and being free from the threat of danger. Maslow pointed out that safety needs are more apparent in emergency situations. This can explain why we tend to do things like purchase insurance and contribute to savings account. The next needs is love or belongingness. This takes form in two ways, sexual and non-sexual, that include both romantic relationships and the feeling that we belong to a social group. For example, friendship, family, and sexual intimacy. Without these attachments, it will give psychological difficulties such as loneliness, social anxiety, and depression. The fourth level of need in Maslow's hierarchy contains esteem needs. There are two types of esteem, which is esteem from others and self-esteem. We want to be respected by others so that the respect will be translated into self-esteem, which is we want to feel good about ourselves. The way we can achieve esteem from others is other people can recognize our achievements and we can be seen as competent and strong. After that, it will build the self-esteem, which is we feel confident, valuable, and worthwhile. The last level of the hierarchy is the self-actualization needs, which is need to develop one's potential to become the person one was meant to be. Other than that, self-actualization also means feeling that we are doing what we believe we are meant to do, because self-actualization looks different for everyone. The examples of famous self-actualized individuals are Abraham Lincoln and Albert Einstein. So, So next is evolution-based model. People who propose a reinterpretation of Maslow's hierarchical model is psychologists Kenrick and colleagues. They suggest that it can take on new significance if the hierarchy can be renovated by incorporating theoretical and empirical developments from evolutionary psychology. However, what is added is a theoretical explanation for the model that is based on the evolutionary function of each particular need. As we can see here, the basic needs related to physiological, safety or self-protection, affiliation, and esteem are retained because they are important to survival, a major evolutionary goal. But the more important is reproduction. The most important is reproduction. So, can we add the important needs to find and retain a mate and to succeed at parenting by raising one's children so that they may in turn reproduce, ensuring one's gene into future generations. Actually, this evolution-based model of human needs have something that was lacking in Maslow's version. Also, the theory on which the Kenrick model is based has a great deal of empirical support and almost accepted among scientists. The last one is characteristics of self-actualizing persons. Maslow conducted case studies of a number of people who he thought were self-actualizers. From this study, he produced a list of 15 characteristics that he suggested are commonly found among self-actualizers. So, the first characteristic is efficient perception of reality. It means that they are able to judge situations correctly and honestly. Next is acceptance of themselves, others, and nature of fate. They realize that people, including themselves, make mistakes, and they accept this fact with humor and tolerance. The third characteristic is spontaneity. This means that true to oneself rather than being how others want because they trust their impulse. Next is problem focus. So self-actualizers have an interest more to larger philosophical and ethical problems than pretty issues. Next is affinity for solitude. They're comfortable being alone. Next characteristic is independence from culture and environment. That means is they do not care about trend because they more prefer to follow their self-determined interests. Next is continued freshness of appreciation. They have a beginner's mind for no matter how common the event is, they will experience it like the first time. Next characteristic is more frequent peak experiences. The peak experiences here is temporary moment of self-actualization that give feelings of ecstasy, harmony, and deep meaning. Next is genuine desire. Next is genuine desire to help the human race. All self-actualizers tend to have a deep and sincere caring for their fellow humans. Next is deep ties with relatively few people. They have relatively few very good friends and they prefer to have privacy and allow only a few people to really know them. Next characteristic is democratic values. They respect and not prejudice about people based on superficial characteristics such as race, religion, sex, and age. Next is the ability to discriminate between means and ends. It means that they enjoy doing something for its own sake rather than simply doing something for the goals the activity can fulfill. Next is philosophical sense of humor. They do not think such jokes are funny. Instead, what they find funny are examples of human foolishness in general. So the second last characteristic is creativity. Creativity here means ability to see connections among things that no one has seen before. They are more likely to be creative because of their fresh perceptions of even ordinary things. The last characteristic is resistance to enculturation. Self-actualizers remain detached from culture-bound rules. They often appear different from and act differently from the crowd. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
My name is Songzexi. I'll be presenting about Carl Rogers. Carl Rogers is widely considered to be one of the founding fathers of psychotherapy research and was honored for his pioneering research with the award for distinguished scientific contributions by the American Psychological Association in 1956. Let me explain what self-actualization is. The term was originally proposed by organic theorist Kyrgyzstan, with the aim of realizing one's full potential. The trend towards full realization of oneself is the basic motivation. The motivation for self-realization. Carl Rogers also believes that the therapeutic power of psychotherapy, humans tend to realize themselves and become their own potential. The trend of expressing and activating all abilities of the body. Self-actualization represents the highest level of psychological development. At this level, realization of all personal potentials is realized, which only occurs after basic and psychological needs are met. Positive rating and worthy conditions. Carl Rogers believes that children have two basic needs: active care and self-worth of others. How we view ourselves. The worth is crucial to mental health and the achievement of goals and ambitions in life, and the possibility of self-realization. Of course, the positive care of others can also promote children's self-realization. Promote self-realization of others and others. People who do not advance in self-actualization often suffer from anxiety. According to Rogers, this is the result of an experience that is inconsistent with his own self-concept. Imagine a young woman working hard throughout elementary and middle school to achieve good results and make her parents happy. Part of her self-concept is that she is very smart and has good grades. Then she entered the university and achieved less than perfect grades in some courses. This experience is alien. This is not consistent with her self-concept as a smart and well-achieved person, and therefore make her feel anxious. What would they think? She pointed to her parents and said, "Are they tired when they find themselves in these grades?" This new experience poses a threat to her self-image, and self-image is critical to her because Rogers believes that people need to define themselves from anxiety in order to reduce the difference between self-concept and experience. A function all around people can change the own self-concept to integrate with their parents. Experience such as maybe I'm not so smart after all, or maybe I'm not always need to get perfect grades. This kind of psychology can save myself from anxiety disease and make oneself realize oneself.